Without a doubt, Bankai is the pinnacle of the Shinigami's power, a weapon that has instilled fear in countless enemies. With it, Shinigami have secured many victories in battle and have made their enemies think twice before initiating an attack, solely out of fear of this revolutionary weapon that reflects a Shinigami's true strength on the battlefield. But as Zaylo Upper mentioned in the Halo one-shot, every great power comes with a specific price to be paid, and powerful Bankai are no exception to this rule, especially when we consider that Shinigami ultimately live within a city that serves as the center hub of the society, Seireitei. They are part of a structured organization, the GOTY 13, which operates under the jurisdiction of the Central 46, a council composed of noble elders and judges. And naturally, any follower of Bleach guys knows that nobles or the Central 46 harbor a deep fear of any great power, or even a potential future threat that could endanger their interests. That's why guys, through the city's history, the nobles have implemented numerous measures against any entity possessing such power, from Ryo himself to the creation of the GOTY 13, which functions as a military arm whose primary purpose is to protect Seireitei. However guys, among the Shinigami who form the backbone of this organization and fight to defend Seireitei using all their might, they are not permitted to use their power recklessly. For example, when it comes to Kido, there are specific forbidden techniques, and using them can result in imprisonment, as we saw almost happen with Chisa. The same logic applies to Zanpakuto, particularly Bankai, and this guys brings us to the topic of this video: 6 Bankai that pose a threat to the society, specifically Seireitei, and I have categorized them into 3 levels. The first level is for Bankai that have been officially prohibited by Central 46 due to their danger, and the second level pertains Bankai that have no official restrictions but whose wielders are well aware of these risks, causing them to avoid using them in most cases. And the third level includes Bankai that, if their true power and risks are revealed, could lead to restrictions being imposed or simply to their wielders taking specific precautions, similar to the second level. And so guys, let's first talk about the first level, the Bankai that has been officially forbidden. And of course, there is the Bankai of the 7th Kinpachi. And so, beside the fact that the nobles, or let's say the Central 46 policies, often include unjust decisions, this particular decision is entirely logical due to the nature of this Bankai's ability. After all guys, Seireitei isn't just home to the Shinigami of the GOTY 13, but also includes districts specifically designated for noble residences, as described in novels, particularly at the beginning of Chapter 5, Part 1. The noble areas are luxurious beyond compare. They include palaces, fine dining establishments, and even exclusive hospitals accessible to very few. Now, imagine all that luxury disappearing in an instant if the 7th Kinpachi's Bankai were to be released. Everything in its path would be reduced to rubble because of its devastating power. And the problem guys isn't just its wide area of effect, it's also the fact that it doesn't distinguish between friend and foe. Anything in its way will be crushed. For these reasons, the inability to differentiate between ally and enemy, combined with its massive destructive range, the Central 46 decided to prohibit its use within Seireitei, and this decision was a key factor in the 7th Kinpachi's death at the hands of the 8th Kinpachi. When the two clashed for the title of Kinpachi, the 7th Kinpachi couldn't use his Bankai, leading to his defeat and eventual death. And so, to the best of my knowledge guys, the only official banned Bankai is that of the 7th Kinpachi, whose inability to distinguish between ally and enemy, coupled with its massive destructive power, played a significant role in this decision. Now guys, let's move on to the second level, and I'll start by talking about Zanpakuto. I believe that if this Bankai didn't belong to Yamamoto, the Central 46 would likely have issued a restriction on its use, or at least limited its activation time. And I'll give you guys an example. If Yamamoto were to release his Bankai against a specific opponent and manage to defeat him in less than 5 or 10 minutes, the damage to Seireitei or even Soul Society would be minimal, perhaps just a rise in temperature and some damage to buildings. And as we saw when the old man released his Bankai, many characters immediately notice a change in temperature. And that's why characters like Unohana or even Yamamoto himself understood that his Bankai was akin to a nuclear weapon, so to speak. If he couldn't defeat the enemy quickly, consequences would be catastrophic. The surroundings temperature would rise to such an extent that it could destroy not just the enemy, but also his allies and Yamamoto himself. Therefore, before considering his allies, it was the enemies who first recognized this terrifying nature of Yamamoto's Zanpakuto, Ryujin Jakka, and its destructive capabilities. And as I said guys before, if someone other than Yamamoto, who is the founder of Gote 13 and had a great influence over the Central 46, had this Bankai, there is no doubt that restrictions would have been imposed on its use. In the same level guys, we move on to a Bankai similar to the 7th Kinpachi's Bankai, Shunsui Kyoraku's Bankai Katen Kyukatsu Karamatsu Shinju. So, one interesting detail guys is that Koryashiki, the 7th Kinpachi, was a close friend of Shunsui Kyoraku when they were both captains. Both of their Bankais are challenging to activate, and as we saw in the story guys, Kubo gave us a clear hint from the start that Kyoraku's Bankai couldn't be released with his allies nearby, and simply because they would be dragged into the play staged by Kyoraku and could end up as a part of it, or even as victims. Thus, I don't think Kyoraku would ever release his Bankai in the Seireitei. We saw how the city where Kyoraku released his Bankai in the Royal Palace was almost entirely enveloped by its influence, and I think Kubo intentionally had Kyoraku release his Bankai far from the Seireitei, exactly in one of the cities of the Royal Palace, which had already transformed into one of the Wanderreich cities by that time. And moving on to the next Bankai, Shinjo Hiraku's Bankai is quite similar in its mechanics to both Kyoraku's Bankai and the 7th Kinpachi's Bankai, especially the latter. The Bankai of Hiraku covers a wide area, and this is the most important point. It can't differentiate between friend and foe. This ability flips the balance entirely. Anyone within its range, whether ally or enemy, begins attacking one another without conscience. And this forced Shinji to avoid releasing his Bankai in situations involving allies, and he used it only against the Quincy's in the battle where he was sure his allies wouldn't be at risk. Even in the novel, when he released his Bankai, Kyoraku and everyone moved a safe distance away before Shinji activated his Bankai. So even without an official restriction, it's difficult, if not impossible, for Shinji to release his Bankai in ordinary circumstances. Now we move to the third and the final level guys, which includes Bankai that doesn't necessarily have difficult release conditions and whose owners can control them, but their abilities make them potentially forbidden in the future. In this level, we have the Bankai of the 8th Kinpachi. So, the 8th Kinpachi, known as one of the most intelligent and strategic Kinpachi, his Bankai allows him to emerge completely with the surroundings environment. This means he can transform into air, the ground, and this makes him nearly invisible, as he no longer has a physical form that his enemies can detect. On the top of that, the 8th Kinpachi can attack from anywhere and at any time without warning. But I think the most dangerous aspect of his Bankai is its spying potential, as Shirosoya doesn't just merge with his environment, but he can spy on everything within it. He can overhear the conversations of both his enemies and his allies, uncovering their plans easily, and this makes him a significant threat to intelligence operations in the Seireitei, and provides an additional reason for the Center 46 to consider forbidding his Bankai. And we have the monster Zaraki, who is always known for his overwhelming strength and ferocity, and his Bankai fully embodies that side of him. When Zaraki releases his Bankai, he transforms into a true monster with a red body and a natural strength. But the major issue in Zaraki's Bankai is that he enters a state of complete loss of control, where he can no longer differentiate between friend and foe. His destructive power can crush everything in his path, which is why his allies must maintain a significant distance to avoid getting hurt. And we have seen that with Byakuya and Toshiro. And let's not forget guys an important point. The Essential 46 prohibited Yamamoto from continuing training Zaraki after just one day, out of fear his power would grow stronger and that he might rebel against the society. Now imagine with a Bankai that significantly amplifies his strength, how much of threat he would pose to everyone, both enemies and allies alike. And so guys, that's the end of my video. We have explored the most dangerous Bankais that could destroy everything in the Seireitei and even the society. Some are officially forbidden, while others are avoided by their owners because of their risks, and there are some that might become forbidden in the future because of their abilities. And this highlights, guys, that Bankai are not just extraordinary powers, but also great responsibilities for the Shinigami who wield them. So guys, do you know any other Bankai that I didn't mention in this list? Share with me, guys, your thoughts in the comments, and see you guys in my next video.